Strap on, because it's going to be a bumpy ride. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. It's Jose here, welcoming you to another opinion piece. I don't know, I just seem to be doing these ones recently because it's what I feel like talking about. This my channel is about honest reviews, me telling you how I say it. So apparently, according to Brandy Reed's Romance, check it out, my last video about the things that I think are wrong with BookTube apparently may or may not annoy a certain number of people. Don't care. I just wish that whenever you leave a dislike, you tell me why. I am going to deal today with a thorny issue. So it's something that has come up, something I've kind of expressed a couple of times, something that some of you have commented on, and I have to say I partially agree, and it's the very tricky issue of gender swapping and race swapping characters in general, be it cinema, comics, fantasy, whatever it is. It tends to happen a lot in comics, but it's not an isolated case. It happens all over the time. Actually, I think it happens since the world is the world. But anyway, just to preamble the whole thing, which is what I've been doing for the last 2 minutes, I haven't got a definite, clear position. And my opinion switches and changes depending on, I'm not entirely sure what. That's the one. So let me talk you through my thought process. Let's get going. Race swapping, gender swapping characters. What do I think about it? My initial reaction whenever I hear or I see that some characters are going to be race swapped or gender swapped is I get on the defensive. And I sympathize with the people that don't like it and become very vocal about it to a degree. And I understand them. If there is a character that you love, if there's a character you relate to, if there's a character that you've built a bond over time, maybe since you were a child, maybe you discovered it at a particular time in your life, to all of a sudden be told that that character is not how you knew it can be upsetting for some people. Yeah, okay. Why would you get upset about some fictional character? So I get that argument as well. But then nothing is sacred anymore. My initial reaction is, what gives you the right to change someone else's creation? Leonardo painted the Mona Lisa and there's no need to reinterpret it. We don't have to turn her black or Asian but there's the whole question whether she's man or a woman. But anyway, you get my idea. No one has to reinterpret Michelangelo. No one has to reinterpret Jesus or any. There's no need. So why do we do that? I'm not sure. But it could also sort of take the slightly more, yeah, it's a fictional character, so, who cares, right? So I have some sympathy for the people that get upset. I wouldn't get so upset. I'm not. It's not life-altering. It's not life-changing for me. But I see where they're coming from. Now, some of the arguments I've heard about the whole race swapping, gender swapping, is representation. Maybe there's too many male superheroes out there. There's too many male-led fiction characters there, and people cannot relate to. So I kind of get that argument, but equally, I also think that's right. That good stories belong to everyone. They belong to humanity, and they talk to all of us, regardless of who we are, who or what we identify as, or what our background is. My now 6-year-old boy loves Spider-Man, and he's a mixed race kid, and he doesn't stop to think whether Spider-Man is white or not, or mulatto like him, or anything like that. He just relates to it. When there was talk about James Bond being played by Idris Elba. A lot of people got upset because, British, whatever, Bond. But in the modern times, and given the current racial mix in the UK, there is no good reason to think why a black person couldn't play Bond. And let's be honest, anyone that has seen Idris Elba in The Wire knows that he'll be a fantastic Bond. And I'm actually upset that he didn't get the part. But anyway, sometimes, and particularly in comics, I'll leave a link in the description below of a couple of lists of all the many superheroes that have been gender swapped or whatever. I'm not an expert on the subject. I don't know how it is handled, but I could sort of I could buy into the idea that insert superhero name that you can't hear is replaced by a person of a different sex or a different race because they decided to hang the mantle, pass it on to someone else get to do their thing. And if it's built into the story, you can understand it, right? There's little to complain there. And if that's how it's done, no problems. However, I think that sometimes these gender swaps and these race swaps, even though they may be handled that way, it's not done because it's going to enable you to tell better stories. It's just basically we're just going to race swap, gender swap, but the intrinsic core of the character is going to stay the same. And typically the people that do that, maybe perhaps they're not necessarily better writers, they're not producing better stories, they're just hoping to sell on the fact that this character is now played by an ethnicity or a gender of insert your preference here. And this is what is currently happening with Marvel and DC comics. They are being outsold many times over by manga because they've race swapped and gender swapped these characters, which I think is not the issue. I think the issue is that it's not leading to better writing. At the end of the day, if you write good stories, if you write believable, relatable characters, people will watch them, people will read them, people will buy them because they believe in them. There's plenty of examples of very racially diverse TV show. The Walking Dead, fantastic comics and TV show, very racially mixed and fantastic. Orange is the New Black was another greatly successful TV show that I watched with my wife every single episode, almost full female cast, lots of minorities represented there, because the story was strong, because the characters were relatable, and that's what is at the core of storytelling. And just because you decide to choose a different gender or ethnicity to tell a story is not going to make your story better. Now, when I did my tongue-in-cheek critical review of the Smurfs, I talked about how the black Smurf got swapped into the purple Smurf, and I actually was in favor of that for the reasons I explained in the video there. So why wouldn't I be in other cases? But the reason was, in the purple Smurf, as the story is called now, the story does not change. The story is as strong as it was in the original incarnation of the black Smurf as it is now with the purple Smurf. To all the people, I have to say, to all the people that get annoyed and upset when a traditionally white character gets gender swapped or race swapped or whatever, let's just take a minute to remember that has been happening the other way around for many, many years, particularly in cinema. The Magnificent Seven, fantastic movie that I watched as a kid with my grandfather and my father, Jules Bruno, Charles Bronson, fantastic story. It's a remake of Kurosawa's Seven Samurai. Hollywood has been borrowing from Asian cinema for decades and remaking movies, and no one complained there. And it's not just the Magnificent Seven. The Departed, that actually got a couple of Oscars awards, is a remake of a Chinese movie called Infernal Affairs. And how many Japanese horror movies have been remade and redone in a Western setting? And no one complained there, so I don't see why we do it the other way around when we change white characters into other ethnicities. Like I said, I don't necessarily buy the argument that it's to make it more relatable to people of minority backgrounds. Um, I believe that strong characters stand in their own merit, and that good stories, good characters are universal, and anyone can relate to them. I can't stop admiring or relating or idolizing sports people because they're not of my ethnic background. We can all agree Michael Jordan, LeBron James, you name it. Any known white sportsman, I'm never going to deny the greatness, and I cannot say that there will never be a reference for me or something that inspires me because they are not white. As a long distance runner, I can look at Eliud Kipchoge, possibly the greatest long distance runner in the history ever of the world, and find inspiration there. Just because he's black doesn't mean I cannot relate to him, or not relate, but find, like I said, inspiration, find motivation to go out there and get running. So I don't really understand why we need to race swap. Maybe, perhaps, sometimes, like I said with this Hollywood movies thing, it's a case of accessibility. The story doesn't change in Magnificent Seven, all these things, but there's a huge major language barrier if we're trying to. And I've watched Infernal Affairs in Chinese, and I've watched Seven Samurai with subtitles in English. But obviously, if we want to bring that great story, that sort of culture to the masses, I can see why an adaptation, a resetting for Western society makes it a lot more palatable, so long as credit is due. I think that's important. The acknowledgement that what I'm telling you, the product I'm selling you, is my retelling of someone else's story. So on that basis, race swapping, I'm okay with. If I'm okay, I have to be consistent with my thought. If I am okay with the Magnificent Seven, The Departed, I have to be okay with Superman being black. I don't know. I just made something up. Also, weird thought just hit me when I was in the shower. If we're going to do a representation of Shakespeare in some African country, we may not find all white actors. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm clutching at straws here. But just to end this point, just to summarize here. If I'm okay one way, I have to be okay the other way. But what am I not okay with? If it's just for shock value and it doesn't lead to better stories. Because, did you know that Captain America is now gay in one of its new incarnations? And, do we need him to be? Is that going to lead to better stories? I don't know. The whole issue of sexuality in characters, I've spoken about this in other videos. To me, it's just not important. It never adds anything to any story I have read. I don't know. I don't know where this leads. I don't know if there are any absolutes that we can cling on to. I honestly think if a story works, there's no need to change anything. And it's only in those cases where there's a huge cultural language barrier where I'm much more okay with reinterpretations. This is it. This is all I had for today. So I would like to thank you all for engaging. Please, 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 as usual, let me know what you think. Do you agree? Do you disagree? I don't care about the thumbs downs that I get on my videos. I really don't care. But please, if you're tempted to leave one, what is it? What is it that you dislike? Is it my very cheap top? Is it just me? The way I talk? The content of my videos? What is it? Let's just engage in conversation. As usual, I want to thank you all for watching, for engaging, liking, subscribing, disliking, if you leave a comment. And as usual, I want to say goodbye. Take loads and loads of care, and I'll see you next time. Bye.